Hi guys, how's everyone doing? We're doing this program, Rudy and I, where we're trying to teach Rudy software engineering from scratch. Software engineering from scratch. You might already know me. I'm not gonna give a long intro. I'm into blockchain, solidity, and security. And um, and Rudy, you want to give a two sentences intro of yourself?
Yeah, my name's Rudy. I've been doing software engineering. No, not at all. Did some courses on JavaScript and CSS, and otherwise, I'm also a DJ and English teacher.
Sweet. So without further ado, let's get to it. So far, um, what have we done? So I planned out the course to fit in line with Rudy's interests, which is music and maybe language. And so the end goal of the course is to be able to use Python to a level where we're able to use some open source models and be able to maybe generate some beats or some kind of stuff like that. Um, the way we're planning to do it is we started with the Z shell. So Rudy kind of did that independently. He watched the video on ZSH. You guys can probably find that on YouTube as well. Um, and now I wanna do the next few things, which is mainly the developer setup and maybe slowly start getting into Python or possibly Lua. Okay. So I feel privileged to have the opportunity to teach Rudy because I've done software engineering not for that long. I've been doing it for like I don't know 6 or 7 years. I don't want to do the subtraction in my head, but I feel the privilege now to be able to sort of start from scratch, right? Like I'm starting from scratch now. So let's do it. Um, we're gonna be mainly doing it on Rudy's PC.
Right.
So this was a PC, a Mac that I was using in the past, and then I deleted sort of all of my SSH keys and logged out of iCloud and everything else, and I gave it to him basically. So his username is actually what my username used to be, dtimal. So that's just one thing to point out. And the technology we're going to be using here is called screen sharing. It's a Mac thing, but it might run on some open source protocol. But we're using the Mac interface. And without further ado, let me show you guys that. Right. So you just go into sharing, and you turn on this screen sharing thing. And what that does is it allows anyone to who's on the same Wi-Fi to log into your computer by entering the username and password. So that's essentially what it allows. It gives you this URL and so we've done that. And so here, right here, I can see Rudy's screen, and if I click on it, I can actually control the mouse, and I can send keyboard events, stuff like that. So I have full access to his computer right now. And so we really hope that's going to work. Obviously, it's kind of misnamed. It's not really screen sharing. It's more like screen control or remote control. I invited Rudy to come over to my place so that because obviously we don't want to expose this functionality over the internet unless you really know what you're doing. That's probably a bad idea. We want to do it on local network, and at the same time, just remember that if you ever do use this functionality, after you finish using it, you should probably turn it off. Cool. The second thing I told Rudy is to update his operating system. Right. The first rule of security engineering is all your software should be up to date, and he's been doing that. And there's about 20 minutes remaining, and we were kind of too lazy to wait, so we started off already. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee, and we're gonna get to it. Rudy, feel free to fill in the void.
Yeah, I'm just looking here at the Wi-Fi, and also considering that you disconnected your voice disconnected for about 5 seconds a moment ago. I'm just worried that because I only have two lines here on my Wi-Fi, so I don't know what I'm connected to.
So
And it
check
looks like
check check which network you're on.
Yeah, it's the 5G. It's for some reason it's giving
Okay.
me 2.
So the 5G, usually in a Wi-Fi name, that indicates laziness by the systems administrator. Basically means 5 gigahertz, right? So there's different frequencies of electromagnetic waves, and in particular the one that is often used by local area networks is 2.4 and 5, right? So usually you want to be on 5 because it's faster, but I do think it has a shorter range, a slightly shorter range, the 5 gigahertz, and not all devices support it, right? Like I think my printer and my vacuum cleaner. Remember that was a big deal. I have this robotic vacuum cleaner, right? And it only supported 2.4 gigahertz. So on most modems, you can configure it so that it sort of spreads both bands, and your computer will probably connect to 5 gigahertz if it's able to, and then the vacuum cleaner can connect to the 2.4 gigahertz. I don't remember my printer. I think that one is able to connect to, and you can always find out by clicking option, right, and clicking your Wi-Fi, and there you see right here channel 5 gigahertz. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. So the only other last thing I can think of is we're using this platform called Riverside, which is basically a better Google Meet, but for podcasts. Rudy, can I ask you at the end of our recording, once I quit the studio, can you leave your browser tab open? I think the way it works under the hood, I'm guessing, is that it's obviously recording locally, and I think it's just saving it in the browser storage, and it's constantly trying to upload it to the cloud. But if you leave your tab open, it can finish uploading, and that's you just hit leave, and then you leave the tab open. Cool. From my side, I think. Well, that wouldn't be great because that means that maybe your audio won't be recorded locally, but what can we do, I guess, right? There's nothing much we can do right now. Yeah, so Rudy's using this 256 gigs laptop, so that's very, very small, right? And we're having some troubles with fitting everything that we want on there, all the amazing content, music and video. Cool. So without further ado, let's begin. I'm going to try to open the screen sharing app and start taking control of his computer. Okay, so he's clearly looking at my video right now. So I'm just going to play around, right? See what works, see what doesn't. Obviously there's some things that are unknown, like he's using a different keyboard layout. I'm a big fan of the Dvorak layout. Let's just see, if stuff works, and just to get a feel for this computer. See how fast it is. Let's see what the latency is. Yeah, it's a little bit slow. In the worst case, we might have to. In the worst case, I could just do a presentation on my computer. But let's see if we can make it work. I do think that it's slow because of your CPU, not because of the network. So obviously, all of this is not even going. It's not touching any internet server. It's all going locally through our Wi-Fi. Just out of curiosity, I mentioned Dvorak. So this is Dvorak layout. I've made some changes. I think the obvious one that everybody makes. Can you guys think of the obvious change that you would want to make? One thing that wouldn't be ideal here. So I'll give you a hint. So the home row, right, is this one, and your 4 fingers consist here. So I don't know why Anthony Dvorak thought that U would be a better place for the index finger, then I, right? You have to move to get to I, but you're by default on you. So on Reddit, I have this post called "What changes have you made to Dvorak?" In the Dvorak subreddit, and everybody's saying I swapped U and I. So that's pretty much what I did as well. And I also swapped T and H. Very few people do that, but I swapped T and H. I just find TH to be slightly better. Cool. What are the main things I love about Dvorak? Apart from the fact that everything's just on the home row. I once typed the 12th character word. It was entirely on the home row. It was Nirvana. I guess honestly the main thing I like is these diacritics here. They're so fucking cool. Like you can press dot just with your middle finger. You can press comma super easy as well. You don't have to move your hand to get to these keys right here, which are much harder to access. Cool. In terms of the symbols, I actually swapped it back. So I actually have it slightly differently. I have the QWERTY symbol, so I have a slash here, and here I keep it fully the same as QWERTY. So yeah. I'm starting to remember now. In QWERTY, you have dash here, plus here, and then the braces here. Yeah. Yeah, the best one by far is called Monkey Type. So I can show you what a Dvorak user, after around 9 months of work, but I don't know. Here's the thing, right? Let's talk about Dvorak in another episode, because there's a lot to talk about. There's counter arguments, there's configuration, there's key bindings, mobile phone usage. I'm just gonna quickly speed through this. Yeah, of course. In fact, I could probably bookmark it for you. Yeah, I'm already making mistakes. I don't have any visual feedback, so it's kind of hard because it's really slow. Yeah, I can't do this. Sorry. Let me try to bookmark it for you. Is this the bookmark button? Nice. Which one you want me to put it in? Thinking and learning? Okay. So let's get started. So I wanna now, in terms of configuration, I guess talk about 4 things. So on a Mac, you want to be using Homebrew. By the way, everything I will be saying is going to be heavily opinionated, right? It's just the experience I have. Other people might have different experiences. So how does Homebrew work? So you have Brew. For me, most of these programs, if you type in --help, you can get help. Okay. I have this global alias H, which does the same thing, but it also runs it through a program called BAT. So let's try BrewLS. Let's see what programs I've installed. Yeah, just look at my recording, and if you want to take notes, then you can always watch it on YouTube and take notes from there. Okay. So this is what I have right now. I think another cool way to visualize it is by typing the leaves option. I think that's what it is. Okay, it's not leaves. Whatever. Let's just try brew leaves before we give up. Yeah, I think that worked. So these are the ones that are not installed as dependencies, right? Anyways, the TLDR is you have formulae and you have casks. Casks are GUI apps, so they have a graphical user interface, things like WhatsApp. What's the difference between Telegram and Telegram Desktop? It's the app looks a little bit different. Telegram Desktop is just the same app as you get on your phone or in the browser, just ported to just in a macOS application. So it looks exactly the same as your mobile app, whereas this is actually written in Swift. This is actually a native application. So it looks different. I personally write Telegram. I personally like Telegram desktop, even though obviously it's much slower because it runs in JavaScript through like it runs a browser internally called Electron, whereas this is an actual native Mac OS application, so it's only gonna be faster. But I just prefer Telegram desktop just because I get the same user interface, right? So this obviously going to be a more supported from the perspective of their company than this one, because this is used by millions if not billions of people, and this might be like a few millions. Anyways, you can get the same distinction on their website. If you go to download Telegram on Mac OS, you can on their website get into this. So this is just these applications are just bottled up from their thing. I have Slack. I have obviously some random applications here. Formula is CLI programs, right? So that's that. Cool. We're gonna kind of just speed through this really quickly. So the first thing I would do, the first mistake you made is I told you to install Vim, and you installed MacVim, right? So we're actually going to install NeoVim. We're actually going to install NeoVim. Where's NeoVim? Let me try to run this again, brew ls, and I'm gonna pipe the output into a program called grep, okay, which is search. Grep will always mean search, and I'm gonna search for NeoVim, and there we go, it found it. Okay, so it means it is somewhere here. In fact, I can see it over here, and let's see, why can't I see it over here? I can see it over here as well. So it's labeled as a formula because it doesn't have a graphical interface, right? It runs in the terminal. I could also use a tool called RG. So grep is decades old and nobody uses it these days. Everybody uses RG. Okay, so we can RG for NeoVim, and there we go. It found it on line 125. So that's it about Homebrew. You install packages with install. I also have an alias. Another really useful one is brew search. So for example, you can see here I was searching the other day for nerdfix. Command K, clear my screen, search for nerdfix, and it found it as a formula. And I have a very useful alias called BI. So what does BI do? So recently I ran it on Helix, so I'm going to run it again, and then I'm going to open a new terminal window, and I'm going to expand BI using tab. And it expands to the function dom_brew_info, and let's see what that does by typing in where. Okay, so let's hit enter. So it gave us the function. Let's add some syntax highlighting. So let's pipe it into a program called bat, and let's tell it that we're using ZSH as the language. There we go. So it's a function, and it runs brew info, then it prints an empty line, then it prints hash dependencies, and then it runs brew dependencies. So let's see if that's the output we got. So we just ran BI, so it ran brew info, then it gave us an empty line, then it printed hash dependencies, and then it ran brew dependencies. Okay, so that's a sweet little tool I use to explore various packages on Homebrew. Questions? Yeah. Perfect. So the first thing you should do is you should write, obviously I always prefer to have a look at what I'm actually doing. So I always write BI first, and it shows me, okay. So it doesn't have, it shows me the description. It's a terminal emulator. It's installed about 20,000 times, okay? 20,000 installations. And it doesn't have any dependencies. So I'm always happy with packages that don't have any dependencies. So then I would type brew install kitty. So try to do that on your computer. In fact, let me fire up your computer again. And let me try to do that. So yeah, don't do anything for now so that we're not in conflict. So let me try to fire up terminal. Okay, so Rudy has the basic macOS terminal, right? Does anyone remember how to find out which shell I'm in, just to know if we're in Bash or if we're in ZSH? I think it should be, okay, we're in ZSH, nice. So the variable shell, which we access with the dollar symbol, always tells you which, the program of the shell you're on. Perfect. So let's, Rudy has already installed Homebrew from their website, so let's see if he has any packages by type in list or ls. That would not be a Homebrew package. That would be a Python library. Okay. But for beginners, PyTorch by Facebook Incorporated. Okay. So he has a bunch of like random shit he installed. It looks like he installed Python. Looks like he was maybe trying to install Python TK, which I strongly disrecommend because nobody's using it that these days. Okay. So guys, what's Python TK? So Python TK was Python's sort of way of building graphical applications, right? But you don't want to run your apps with Python, so nobody uses that these days. Okay. He was also trying to install Solidity. Again, I wouldn't recommend installing it with Homebrew. So yeah, he's got a lot of shit here. Level DB, so it looks like this, for example, used in Ethereum, so maybe he was trying to do some Ethereum stuff. But this is a very important library. Okay, this SSL is about cryptography, so for public and private keys, stuff like that. Anyways, so what should we do now? So we have Homebrew. Let's see where it's located, just to get an idea. Okay. In fact, we can even run brew prefix to see if it gives us the same answer. Oh, I messed that up. So if we click up, then it should then it okay. So just a small note here. Homebrew on Intel uses /user/local, and Homebrew on Apple Silicon uses /opt/homebrew, I think, /opt/brew. Okay, so slightly different place where they place their data. So let's install Kitty. So before we do anything, it's always a good idea to see if we're actually installing the right application for security purposes. But in terms of kind of getting a security intuition, all of these packages that are accessed through brew install, they're all already in the Homebrew, what's called tap, in the default tap. So they should kind of be vetted, right? It's not like we're installing some custom random shit from the internet. So they should be to some degree vetted. But still, so there's this in some package managers, for example, Pythons or JavaScript, there's this notion of typo squatting, which is we make a little small typo and somebody has put a package there that is malicious, right? That's right. So I don't know why it's taking forever, but in the meantime, let's just try to install Kitty. Go on. It's going to take forever, so you can talk. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Whenever you get the prompt, that's when the previous process is finished. That's correct. Yeah, the shell also has a way to suspend process with Control Z, but I personally never use it, and most people don't use it, so don't worry about it. Okay? Yeah, great question. So this application we have in front of us, it's called a terminal emulator, and it's actually supposed to emulate in the past when you had terminals, right? And even in the past before that, you had psací stroje in Czech, in English, typewriter machines, which is in the 60s. The only way to interact with computers was through, typing machines. They would print. You didn't have screens. You had computers before you had monitors, so you would send it input with a typewriter, and it would print stuff on pages. Yeah, so printers predate monitors. Okay, fun fact. I think it was in the 70s only later that they said, hey, the military is using these monitors for radar, right, for ships. So let's try to make video games on it, and that's when things like Pong started to arise. But you had a decades of computing before that. So the way the terminal works is it's called a serial port. So serial port means it's the simplest thing you can imagine. So it sends data in and it receives data out. Okay. So what happens when you press something while it's running? The answer is nothing. So I just pressed A, and it does display the A on the screen, but it's actually going to only take effect once the process has finished running. So then I'll have prompt, and then I'll have A. Great question. I think, I'm not 100% sure about that right now. What would happen if we press Control Z right now? I think you're right. I think that is a special control code, and it would stop it immediately. Okay. The other two that are worth remembering are Control C and Control D. So Control C, Control C is very important. That would stop the current, sub-process running. So that would stop our Kitty download. So we don't want to press Control C. And then if you're at the prompt, Control D exits the terminal. Okay? If we type exit, that would be another way to get to do the same thing. So, that would also, the operating system would what's called clean up the resources. Yeah, perfect. No remorse. So let's see if your terminal app supports at least multiple windows. So let's see if we can do that. Because I'm not really familiar with this terminal application. Shell, new window, new tab, okay. Seems like it does support. So let's see what's going on with our Kitty download. So I think it's installing right now. I mean, it honestly, so it's the concept of installing just means extracting some zip files and copying them. I feel like it could have gotten hung on the fact that you don't have enough disk space. Most applications don't really handle that. So that's very, very possible. Are you sure? So let me try to check. Command space to open up Alfred, and let's try to type in about. It's good you have trash. That's good. By the way, it's also possible that these homebrew packages were from me when I gave you the laptop, because I wouldn't, Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then I was a noob by trying to install. Yeah. So it seems like you should have enough space. So yeah, let's just keep it running. In the meantime, there's a lot of content I have, nevertheless. So this is Kitty. Okay. Welcome to Kitty. Welcome to Kitty, my friend. This is the language I'm using. That's true, but I can spin up multiple terminal processes. Okay, TTYs. That's right. That's exactly right. So Kitty is kind of very simple. Vim is more complicated in this, but Kitty uses the same thing, the same terminology as browsers. So you have tabs, and in tabs you can have different windows. Well, I guess that's different from whatever browser, but yeah, this is just how Kitty works. The shell I'm using is ZSH, so that's what gets interpreted when I type in some text. The prompt I'm using, the one that shows me, perfect. You can do CD, for example. Yeah, the prompt I'm using, yeah, that's right. The prompt I'm using, the one that shows you the current directory, maybe if you're in a Git repository, then the current commit you're on, and maybe it shows you also which Lua version you're using, because I'm in a Lua project right now. It's called Starship. Yeah, it's called Starship. It's a prompt that's just really, really beautiful. And this graphical thing that is not super aligned, but it's one of those things I just don't care about. And I still find it useful even though it's not aligned. It's called Fig. And what does Fig do? Fig just gives you autocomplete in your terminal. So I can say, it shows me all the directories, and I can swap through them with arrows and stuff like that. So let's just go to the parent directory. And ZSH, the reason people love it is the following. It allows really easy configuration. So for example, you see I did CD, and it did something, right? I just did CD, and it printed something. Why is that? So for that, I have to introduce you to my ZSH RC. So this is where you write all your config, okay? So ZSH provides an API to do something once you change directory, okay? So without further ado, let's jump into that and explore that. So I'm gonna fire up my ZSH RC in NeoVim. I've gone through this file to make sure there's nothing secretive, so I'm happy sharing the file in its current state. There's no NDA violations in this file, so I can show the whole file to the internet. And I want to clean it up in the next few weeks. It's right now kind of a mess, but it works. It's just not clean. That's it. That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So let's try to find the part where I change present working directory. It's called chpwd in the ZSH. And I'm just gonna skim through this because it's not important, but it's a curiosity. I have a function called custom chpwd that gets run every time my directory gets changed. And what does the function do? This is not super important. This is also not that important. Basically, it just runs. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It adds something to what's called the standard output. In particular, it runs f. Now, what does f do? Let's have a look at what f does. So let's just type in f. Let's first just see the. Okay, wow, that's cool. And now let's try to expand it with tab to see what it's alias to. So it runs print working directory. That's this part. And then it runs dom lsd. So what does dom lsd do? So let's try to print the function with where, and we already know that we should probably pipe it to bat to get syntax highlighting. Okay, dom lsd. Okay. Whew. Should we try to read through this? Okay. So this is ZSH. Okay, perfect. It's a function. It's a ZSH function. And it basically says if the amount of columns in my terminal, which is this, is less than 78, then I run command lsd, and if it's greater than 78, then I also run command lsd, but I run it in long format. So I'll give you an example. Let's open a new tab or new window. Let's run F. Do you see the difference? What's the difference? Okay, they both have the directory, but one of them is what's called long format, and one of them is just regular format, right? That's right. They're the same, but this one has a -L here, which is long format. Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, it has the group, the group that this file belongs to, I think, and the user that it belongs to. Okay, good. Has its size, right? Yeah. And it has the date it was last modified. And these are called file flags, right? So it tells you what type of a file it is, and it tells you the permissions for the user, the permissions for the group, and the permission for all other users on my computer, right? So this stuff is not super relevant. It's something that is useful to know for a software engineer, but it's not something that I use day to day, just because these days it's very common for every human being to have his own computer, right? My MacBook is not used by multiple people, but if it was, then like if I was at a university, right, where a lot of users use the same computer, then this would be very important, right? These are the permissions for everyone else. So they can read, they can execute, but they can't write. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this, that's right, there's no W, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, again, the threat model that I'm using to think about my computer is, obviously if somebody has full access to your computer, that's bad. But I try to minimize what would happen if they have access to it. But I'm not really concerned that much what other users can do on my computer, again, because I don't really give it to, so I don't worry about that threat vector, right? But if you do, maybe you would want to change it so that they can't read. So yeah, that's just some what's called this topic. It's called Unix, file permissions. Mac OS is a Unix-like operating system. That's right. No, so it's not native to ZSH, and in fact, when I expand it, it just does the following things: pwd, which is native to ZSH, it always prints you the current directory you're in. Okay, that's right, and then it runs this function dom_lsd. Now, what does dom_lsd do? Dom_lsd runs lsd, command lsd. What does LSD do? So LSD it's very similar to LS, right? So this is the native ZSH LS. This is what decades of people have been using to list directories, right? I just have an LSD which also adds some colors and some icons. So why not, right? How do I have it? Let's see. Let's see, I installed it through Homebrew, yeah? And we can even look it up on GitHub, right? So we can type in open, yeah. That's right. The repository for code, yeah. Yeah, we could do that. Why not? We could open the browser and LSD. There we go. It's a program. It's a program. It's a shell program. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you could say that. I just call it as like a CLI app or CLI program, right? A command line interface program. I wouldn't call it a shell program. That was kind of a misnomer because it's not actually written in the shell language, right? So shell is a scripting language that we've been using for now, but it allows you to run other binaries or other programs such as LSD. Okay? And LSD tries to follow ls very closely, and so it has this this similar syntax, right? If I just type in LSD, it gives me this short syntax, kind of like if I just type in ls. And if I type in LSD-L, it will give me similar syntax to LSD-L. And here let's type in ls-l, ls-l. Fig kind of fucked that up, so let's try that again. Escape so it doesn't autocomplete. And it's very similar, right? So LSD just adds some nice little CSS. It's not CSS, but you know what I'm saying. Some nice little colors and some nice little icons. Why am I prefixing this with backslash? It's because turns out I also override ls, I think. Pretty sure I override ls in my ZSH config. So whenever you just want to go to the raw command, you can either prefix it with backslash. You could also type command. That would do the same thing. And sometimes built-in also works. Built-in ls. Okay, so that didn't work. Let's take a 5-minute pause here and then continue. How do I pause it?